I love you.
I know.
She's the queen bee, a star. Those other two are just her little workers.
Her favorite movie is Varsity Blues.
I hear her hair is insured for $10,000.
I just feel like women, they have minds and they have souls as well as just hearts.
Yes, the math of love triangles is as simple as can be. Whichever Tom or Dick I might pick, the center of the triangle's little me.
And don't forget, I'm also just a girl standing in front of a boy, asking him to love her.
I can't figure out the mathematics of this. I just know I love you. And I realize I come with a package deal, 3 for the price of 1, and my package, perhaps in the light of day, isn't all that wonderful, but I finally know what I want, and what I want is you.
Look at a clip from the movie, and this is a romantic scene, not an action scene. And I think Star Wars fans will be much surprised to see that Princess Leia is not choosing Luke Skywalker. So we'll watch.
Very nice.
I'll have what she's having.
Princess Leia Organa has lost her home and her family, but not her purpose. She is more determined than ever to defeat her enemy and bring about peace, except things go awry on an escape from icy Hoth. And now things are heating up with a scoundrel in ways she never expected. A couple of years ago, Han Solo left his life of smuggling to join the rebellion and fight for the cause. But a recent encounter with a bounty hunter means he has to face his past or suffer the consequences. He plans to go but cannot leave behind the beautiful princess who wants nothing to do with him. They are thrown together and must figure out if they are being followed, if their ship can be repaired, if their new friend can be trusted, and of course, whether their passionate arguments will lead to passion of another kind. Anyway, hello! On this channel, we talk about ladies, and this series is going to be all about exploring the ways female characters have been treated over the decades by this franchise. And because we are talking love stories for this installment, I just want to remind everyone that one person's romance is another's psychological horror, and vice versa.
And that lovely, soft fluttering of bat wings. And that divine cave.
You're so romantic, Tish.
You may not wish to have a coworker insisting you have a crush on him, but you cannot assume that no one would want that. And just because you wouldn't like it doesn't mean it makes for a bad story. I mean, coffee shop AUs are pretty popular, despite that being the actual nightmare of most people who work in service. Romantic plots in series like this one are there to reflect and emphasize the themes of the narrative, not serve as some kind of blueprint for you in the real world. What I'm saying is, I'm going to be talking a lot about romantic tropes and how they are used here. So if you think girls have cooties or that height differences can be predatory, this video is not for you. Maybe you'll understand better when you're older. For the rest of you, let's get started.
Understood? Yeah. Good luck.
One of the forefathers of cognitive development theory, Jean Piaget, described the learning process as one of seeking equilibrium. When we encounter a new situation, we are in disequilibrium. We use our existing schema, things we already know about similar situations, to predict what to do. If that approach does not work, we remain in disequilibrium until we update our schema to include an approach that does work. The point being that if you are already in equilibrium, you are not going to learn anything. You feel that you already know how to handle everything, and it is not until something comes up that you cannot figure out that you're going to consider learning something new.
Were you listening to me, Neo? Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress? I was. Look again.
No, that is not part of my dissertation. It is actually a huge theme of The Empire Strikes Back. Let's talk about Luke and Yoda briefly, since that is where this is most obvious, and then we'll get back to Leia.
That boy is our last hope.
No, there is another.
At the beginning of the movie, Luke is the hero of the rebellion, who trusted his own instincts instead of anyone else's.
Luke, you switched off your targeting computer. What's wrong?
Nothing. I'm all right.
And that is why he saved the day. The next movie could certainly have continued with this idea of Luke as the biggest hero around, except it doesn't.
I'm looking for a great warrior.
Wars not make one great.
Rather than allow him equilibrium as the hero, everything he encounters pushes him into disequilibrium as he finds that he is wrong. And it starts right away when he gets into trouble and has to be saved by his friends.
There's a meteorite that hit the ground near here. I want to check it out. It won't take long.
Something that is actually a consistent trait of Luke's.
Thanks to you.
That's two you owe me, Junior.
But Luke leaves the rebellion behind, self-assured and confident.
There's nothing wrong, R2. Just setting a new course.
Until he meets Yoda.
And we didn't mean to land in that puddle, and if we could get our ship out, we would, but we can't, so why don't you just...
Yoda's entire teaching style is to push Luke into disequilibrium and to question his assumptions.
I can't. It's too big.
Size matters not.
Even this working out is a mislead. He can use the Force to lift an X-Wing. Do you really think these guns are going to make a difference when he goes up against the Empire's guns?
Luminous beings, Zoe, not this crude matter.
Now, it admittedly would help with his lightsaber technique, but we actually do not see him practicing that at all. He had more training in the last movie for that particular weapon.
You'll find I'm full of surprises.
And Yoda points out that
all his life as he looked away to the future, to the horizon.
Which implies that even his self-assurance from the last movie was incorrect.
Never his mind on where he was. What he was doing.
Anyway, controversial hot take here, but Yoda is not a very good teacher, in my professional opinion.
I'm not afraid.
You will be.
I have ranted about this line.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Many times because it encourages this.
If you'd tried and failed, I'd understand, but you didn't even try.
So I didn't even fail, and I don't see you giving me credit for that.
We see that he fails Luke. His tactics force Luke to question his assumptions, which is necessary, but he's asking too much and offering little support to help Luke return to equilibrium.
I don't believe it.
That is why you fail.
Luke is too upset about his friends.
I can't keep the vision out of my head. They're my friends. I gotta help them.
You must not go.
His attachments, and Yoda doesn't know how to deal with that, something we'll talk about more in my next video, instead expecting Luke to give up everything for the training.
And sacrifice Han and Leia.
If you honor what they fight for.
While Luke feels like he hasn't actually learned anything, just been wrong all the time.
You want the impossible.
So he decides to leave.
Help them you could, but you will destroy all for which they have fought.
His idea is that he was the hero last time, and he can certainly be the hero of the story again. Except Yoda was right, and circumstances prove that it was necessary to push Luke so far outside of his comfort zone. He is no match for Darth Vader, and can do nothing to help his friends.
Luke! Luke, don't hit the trap! Hit the trap!
You are beaten. It is useless to resist.
Much has been made of this twist.
I am your father.
I think it works because the whole movie has been forcing Luke to question his assumptions. And this is just another example of that. Luke had painted this as a simple story of good versus evil, where him being good would certainly win because he had the Force on his side. But he has learned that the Force does not take sides, at least not in the way he thought. Darth Vader can use it just as well, if not better.
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. But you are not a Jedi yet.
And the father he idolized is actually
the most hated man in the galaxy.
So all of this pushes him into disequilibrium, and he will have to reconcile it into his worldview as we go into the final movie.
Luke.
Father.
Son.
Why didn't you tell me?
And how does all of that relate to Leia? Well, she's on much the same journey as her brother. It was not established at the time that they were siblings. Anyway, Leia starts the movie in her comfort zone, mostly in equilibrium. But Han makes her uncomfortable because he refuses to be put into the box of rebellion member that she wants him to stay in.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Probably do.
But other than that, she's pretty comfortable with the events on Hoth.
That's right.
She is the leader of the rebellion, and she knows how to run operations and how to evacuate all of her people.
It's metal.
Then it couldn't be one of those creatures. An Imperial probe droid.
The energy shield can only be opened for a short time, so you'll have to stay very close to your transports. Understood?
Yeah.
Good luck.
Send all troops from Sector 12 to the south slope to protect the fighter. Give the evacuation code signal and get to your transports.
But then things do not go as planned, and she finds herself in the last place she wanted to be.
This bucket of bolts is never going to get us past that blockade.
And I just want to point out that this...
Oh yeah? Watch this.
Watch what?
The hyperdrive motivator has been damaged. It's impossible to go to light speed.
Is absolutely an allegory for her feelings.
No light speed.
It's not my fault.
What's wrong with the Falcon?
Hyperdrive. The ship's almost finished. 2 or 3 more things and we're in great shape.
They told me they fixed it.
You did it!
So Han continues to be the thorn in her side throughout the movie. I hesitate to say that he is there to prove her wrong.
You do have your moments. Not many of them, but you do have them.
I don't believe it.
That is why you fail.
Since Han is not her mentor, his main role here is to put up roadblocks to her careful plans.
Why are you still here?
And I mean that narratively, structurally, not something he's doing intentionally.
Cave is collapsing.
This is no cave.
We start out with him not having the Falcon fixed in time, so he is still on Hoth when the last transport leaves, and she fails to get on it and has to go with him instead. The escape does not go according to plan, but he gets them out of there without being noticed, mostly. He's not infallible, of course. There's this whole bit in the cave, and it does parallel this other moment in a cave. Luke's vision is about admitting to the darkness that might be within him, as well as foreshadowing this.
I am your father.
And it is here that Leia kisses Han, explicitly acknowledging their relationship. Like Luke, she does not confront this now, but leaves instead. It is the first time she is given an indication that she likes Han for more than strictly professional reasons.
I just assumed it's a Wookiee.
So both characters are presented with something distinctly outside of their equilibrium, and they will have to confront it by the end of the movie.
You like me because I'm a scoundrel.
I love you.
I know.
So for most of this story, she's no longer the rebellion leader. She's having to grapple with the idea that she may also be a woman and stuck with a man who is crazy about her and won't shut up about it.
Come on.
You're imagining things.
Am I? Then why are you following me?
He actively pushes her into disequilibrium by insisting she does have feelings for him. And I'll get more into that later, but I think it's important to note that he's not pushing his feelings onto her.
And then you're as good as gone, aren't you?
Rather, he is aware that she feels more for him than she's willing to admit under these circumstances. They get to Cloud City at Han's suggestion, and Lando provides a counterpoint to Han.
Card player, gambler, scoundrel. You'd like him.
But she doesn't, does she? She is suspicious of him while growing closer to Han.
I don't trust Lando.
But then circumstances change.
I'm sorry, too.
And she may sort of actually prefer this situation.
You certainly have a way with people.
It is, after all, a familiar one.
I take orders from just one person, me.
So when are you still alive?
It's not until she is faced with the idea of losing Han that she accepts her own feelings.
I love you.
And then we immediately get a return of in charge Leia.
Oh, but we understand, don't we, Chewie? We had no choice.
Issuing orders until she gets everyone, well, almost, safely away from the planet and back to the rebellion. Luke was supposed to learn how the Force really works and not to overestimate his abilities, while Leia was supposed to learn that she can be a rebellion leader and still be an individual. And while obviously things don't end well for either of them in this movie, we will see them in the next movie having learned both.
Princess, we'll find Han. I promise.
Chewie, I'll be waiting for your signal.
So this movie works to develop our heroine by taking her out of her comfort zone and putting her in a state of disequilibrium that she will have to reconcile before we meet her again in the next film. So let's talk about how that works as part of her trilogy-long character arc.
We've got to go back.
What?
I know where Luke is.
For our second section today, we are going to get into the next steps of the journey Leia is taking. Recall that, in A New Hope, she went through the first 4 steps. When we met Leia, she was separated from herself as a person outside of the rebellion. She was ignoring her own feelings to get the job done, and this movie requires her to confront some of those by the end. Though not completely, we do have another whole movie for her to reach self-actualization.
And what precisely am I supposed to know?
First, here's the whole journey she goes through on the screen if we treat it as a singular character arc. In that case, she is separated from the rebellion and her role in it, which she regains at the end. But I want to get into specifically how she moves along her overall emotional journey that is not just, her job. In that case, I think we start a bit back from where we left her, back on the road of trials.
I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
At the beginning of The Empire Strikes Back, Leia is in the current rebellion base on Hoth. She is a high-ranking official, and Han comes to take his leave of her because of the bounty hunters that are after him.
Well, Your Highness, guess this is it.
That's right.
She is fully in rebellion leader mode and insists the only reason she hoped he would stay is because of his technical qualifications.
Yes! You're a great help to us. You're a natural leader.
Obviously, she would be sensitive about losing people. So she's clearly in denial about her feelings. I'm going to get more into how romance as a storytelling trope is used in the next section, but much of her road of trials is pushing Leia to admit how she really feels.
She expressed her true feelings for me.
Captain, being held by you isn't quite enough to get me excited.
While she is engaging in that emotional struggle, she is also actively trying to evade the Empire. In the last movie, the capture happened right away and was a fairly traumatic experience, so it makes sense for her to be prickly.
What are you doing? You're not actually going into an asteroid field.
She is trying to avoid a situation where someone she cares about is put in danger, and keeping him at a distance because perhaps that will help if they are inevitably captured.
You want to be around when I made a mistake. This could be it, sweetheart.
I take it back.
The next step Leia goes through is the illusion of success. I would say we get a few moments of this, starting right here.
Come on, admit it. Sometimes you think I'm all right.
Stop that. My hands are dirty.
My hands are dirty, too. What are you afraid of?
Afraid? I happen to like nice men.
Nice man.
Will she accept how she feels about him? Does she like nice men? Are her hands really dirty?
Sir, I've isolated the reverse power flux coupling.
But then, of course, this is interrupted. We can't resolve her arc so early. And their clever escape into this cave is similarly an illusion.
No cave.
And for Leia, she can continue to ignore her feelings.
What do you have in mind for your next move?
But the real illusion of success is their time on Cloud City. Things haven't gone to plan, but this at least looks like somewhere they can rest. What I really like about this is how her costume has changed to one distinctly feminine and soft, compared to her utilitarian previous outfit. It opens the idea of her having a softer side, as well as making Cloud City seem like a more pleasant place where you can let your guard down.
You truly belong here with us among the clouds.
Thank you.
The third step Leia goes through in this movie is experiencing feelings of spiritual death. One particularly interesting thing about this is that these dire circumstances allow her to accept her own feelings in the process. She allows Han to kiss her forehead when she's worried about C-3PO.
He's been gone too long to have gotten lost.
She holds his hand when Lando betrays them.
I'm sorry, too.
And comforts Han after they were tortured.
Why are they doing this?
But back to where we left off. Leia, of course, does not let her guard down in Cloud City.
I don't trust Lando.
She would hardly be a leader in the rebellion if she did. So she is upset about C-3PO being gone and is not mollified by Han or Lando reassuring her.
Well, I don't trust him either. He is my friend.
Earlier, she told Han,
Someday you're going to be wrong and I just hope I'm here to see it.
and well, that does come to pass.
I had no choice. They arrived right before you did.
So now she must face all of her fears: betrayal, capture, torture, and then losing Han.
You have to take care of her.
You hear me?
This is the darkest moment for Leia in the trilogy. As you can tell by the lighting, she finally becomes willing to admit her true feelings, and it is too late. If only she could have said it earlier.
I know.
One thing I really like about this movie is that this devastating moment for Leia is not actually the end of the film. In a lot of movies, female characters in a romance arc have it as the biggest part of their story, but not Leia.
I don't need any of your help.
Instead, after she loses Han, Leia takes action.
Luke! Luke, don't hit the trap! It's a trap!
With some help from her masculine allies.
Oh, we understand, don't we, Chief?
First, she goes after Han, and when that doesn't work, she still manages to get everyone off of Cloud City.
I know where Luke is.
What about those fighters?
Should we just do it?
And most importantly, we have this scene.
Leia.
Now, at the time, I suppose this was considered Luke's power, being able to talk to Leia, but with the benefit of the next movie, I think we can certainly say this is as much her capabilities with the Force.
That boy is our last hope.
No, there is another.
In any case, it makes a clear sense of purpose for Leia going forward. She fell in love, and that made this harder, but she's not going to just sit around. Instead, she's going to use how good she is with people and with missions, combine it with her Force powers, and go get him back. For our final section today, I want to get into how Leia's story here subverts expectations. And I'm going to cover two things. One was the expectations many people would have gone into the movie having, and one is more of a misconception that has popped up since then.
This deal is getting worse all the time.
I want to start this by making a differentiation between shipping and canon romance, but not in a canon is obviously superior way. I mean that if you're looking for why people ship things, you probably want to look at actor chemistry, thematic similarities between the characters, if two characters are the most fleshed out in canon, whether they interact or not, or even the opposite, where one or both characters are mostly blank slates for the shipper to use as action figures.
The long looks, the stolen glances. the general atmosphere of would they, might they?
Oh, give me a break. I mean, you could do the same thing with Pierce and Abed.
While romantic tropes are ways a story establishes that characters are in love or are going to be, there are a lot of tropes to do so, but I would put them in two main categories. The conflict is broadly either internal or external. External is like Romeo and Juliet, where their families are keeping them apart, but they are in love and doing their best to act on it. Internal is where one or both of them want to have a relationship but is unwilling to go for it. And oftentimes there are external factors that they tell themselves are the problem, but realistically it's more about being unwilling to be that vulnerable. Or, of course, metatextually, about drawing out the tension in the will they won't they conflict to make the story juicier.
Yeah, but Jeff, let's be honest. There's more between you and Annie than there is between me and Pierce.
How dare you?
So if you saw A New Hope today and had never seen or heard of Star Wars before, somehow, who would you expect Leia to end up with?
You think a princess and a guy like me?
No.
Pretend it's 1977 and we're years away from the whole sibling thing being established. Well, we have this dashing lad who discovers he's actually the savior of the galaxy, or whatever, who is motivated to leave home because of her beauty and her damsel in distress status. He personally saves her from her prison and leads her out of the danger. She kisses him on the cheek a couple of times and comforts him when he is upset.
There wasn't anything you could have done. He's got to follow his own path. No one can choose it for him.
Basically, the vast majority of stories, written by men, point to such a situation as being the love story. While with Han, they banter a bit, and he winks at her here, but nothing much else happens.
You know, sometimes I amaze even myself.
That doesn't sound too hard.
I'm not saying no one shipped Han with Leia. In fact, I would say that there is no doubt in my mind that very few women shipped Leia with Luke, though they probably expected it to be canon. But I feel safe in saying that most people are probably shipping Han and Leia because of the juicy character conflict.
I don't know who you are or where you came from. But from now on, you do as I tell you. Okay.
Where he had a redemption arc to come serve the greater good, and that makes his dedication to the rebellion potentially more like hers, the most important thing to them.
Hey, I knew that was more to you than money.
While I'm certainly not doubting Luke's dedication, his status as hero of the rebellion means that he could be here for accolades instead of the cause. He ends up not being that, to be clear, but after A New Hope, it's a reasonable assumption. Then we get to Empire Strikes Back, and Leia kisses Luke on the lips twice in this movie. But she also kisses Han, and let's compare them. Which one do you think folks remembered when they left the theater?
Very nice.
I'll be back.
Sorry, Luke, but I don't think it was either of these. This one is obviously provoked because of what Han is saying, implying that she cares about him.
You must have hit pretty close to the mark to get her all riled up like that, huh, kid?
Well, I guess you don't know everything about women yet.
And then this kiss is mostly an afterthought, and nothing about the framing or musical score for either indicates that they are important. But this one, and this one, yeah, this is the kiss of the movie. It is the culmination of the relationship that has been building all along, finally overcoming that internal conflict.
I love you.
I know.
Because this really is just an internal conflict. Yeah, Leia thinks now is not the best time, but there's nothing to indicate that they couldn't have a real relationship under these circumstances. So we see that Han has been waiting around for Leia to make the first move and tries to push her and cajole her into admitting her feelings.
Come on.
You're imagining things.
Couple things I want to point out is how brilliantly this is acted by both Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford. But we also have the framing in the nebulous concept of the female gaze. I don't have a firm definition for it, but I know it when I see it. And it is definitely used on Han here.
All right, listen, I didn't want to have to do this, but you leave me no choice. Here comes the smolder.
Look at those big puppy dog eyes as he does what is definitely the most important thing for a romantic hero to do. Gaze at his love interest in a way that makes it clear he really sees her.
Come on, that's it.
Give the evacuation code signal.
And Carrie does a masterful job of showing us that Leia is not rejecting this whole thing completely, but only that she is conflicted. She values Han as part of the rebellion, something I honestly think she would have to in order to have any romantic interest. But she also likes to banter with him, and she likes that he doesn't just obey her orders.
You make it so difficult sometimes.
I do, I really do. You could be a little nicer, though.
Yeah, Luke puts her on a pedestal, but pedestals are pretty lonely. With Han, she isn't the rebellion leader or the princess. He makes fun of the idea of either.
Yes, Your Highness.
And instead treats her like a person whom he respects, importantly. They have a good discussion about what to do after they escape the Empire, and he doesn't just tell her what to do.
Any ideas?
Where are we?
I know it, sister.
There's not much there.
They end up working really well together, even if that involves some venting of feelings.
The ship's almost finished. 2 or 3 more things and we're in great shape.
The sooner the better. Something's wrong here.
And Han Solo is absolutely playing her love interest here, not the other way around. He has all the important traits of a romantic male lead. He gazes at her, he respects her, he listens, he understands and values her, he's tall. He, and the movie as a whole, take her feelings seriously.
Hey, Your Worship, I'm only trying to help.
Would you please stop calling me that?
Sure, Leia.
This could have all been more toxic if it was framed from Han's perspective, which brings me to that misconception I wanted to discuss. And I don't want to be mean here, but a certain demographic of fans have decided that Han is the suave, womanizer, coolest guy in the galaxy type.
We're all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
Which, first of all, how dare you when Lando is right there?
Sorry, am I interrupting anything?
Secondly, we at no point see this man even look at another woman. He's not in this seedy tavern at the beginning with any chicks around. I mean, there does seem to have been some horrible accident of genetics, so that very few female members of any species appear to exist.
She's fast enough for you, old man.
But we certainly do not see Han interested in any of them.
Imperial troops have entered.
Come on, that's it.
Thirdly, if you're reading this line as how impossibly cool Han Solo, or Harrison Ford, since he famously came up with it, is supposed to be,
I know.
you are incorrect. He is not saying this because he does not reciprocate. He has not been hounding this woman to admit her feelings all movie so he can just be like,
shut up, baby, I know it.
No, he's clearly in love with her at the beginning and does not think she would return the feeling. But he wants to know for sure, and she will never give him a straight answer. And that's an answer on its own. She is a direct, forthright person. If she didn't have any feelings for him, she would say so without getting emotional about it.
I was gonna leave without giving you a goodbye kiss.
I just assumed it was a Wookiee.
I can arrange that.
But she does.
Half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder.
So he knows there must be something there.
Stop that. My hands are dirty.
She wouldn't be uncomfortable because her hands were dirty if she didn't on some level want to hold hands. Anyway, if you do not go into this thinking that Han gets all the ladies weak at the knees, you can definitely see how the framing of this relationship subverts all expectations. Leia is not going to end up with the hero of the galaxy who effortlessly saved them all in the last movie. But she is also not going to passively end up with the scoundrel either. In fact, half of this entire film is explicitly about how her feelings are developing, rather than focusing on how one of them deserves her more than the other, like badly written love triangles usually do. Instead, we know the endgame couple will be decided by her and no one else.
That's right.
And that is a pretty groundbreaking idea that few stories decide to embrace. I mean, everything about the first movie, especially this poster, point to Luke and Leia being the couple. But that would not develop Leia as a character at all, or Luke for that matter. And so they made the much better story decision of pairing her up in a way that challenged her, and we get to see her as a more well-rounded character as a result.
All the patrols are in. Still no
Still no contact from Skywalker or Solo.
And then after this great study into her emotional state, she gets right back to being badass and rescuing everyone for the rest of the runtime.
Slow down. Slow down and we'll get under. Lando, open the top hatch. Lando?
Okay, let's go.
And we'll start the next movie with one of my favorite scenes that combines both.
Yotto. Because he's holding a thermal detonator.
Someone who loves you.
Leia.
But my point is that if you are paying attention to Leia, she is always here to break the mold and go against what you might expect the main female character to do.
Well, I guess you don't know everything about women yet.
So is Leia more than a love interest? I would like to point out that, unlike the last movie in which she took the narrative space of a love interest for Luke, she is actually the co-lead of this movie. And I don't mean with Han. I mean she and Luke are the main characters of the film, each on their own parallel adventure.
I'm not afraid.
Dude, what are you afraid of?
Afraid?
What does that make Han? That makes him the love interest, sweetie. He doesn't have an arc of his own. He's there to develop Leia's character, and he does it beautifully. So obviously Leia is more than a love interest. She is in fact the lead who has a love interest. And that's a great step up from the last movie, which was already breaking the mold for female characters. She continues to be iconic, and I can't wait to see what she'll do next. Thank you for listening to me talk about our space princess. Next time, we'll continue with this series to talk about the forbidden love between a Jedi and a senator. Please like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, join my Patreon, buy me a coffee, all of the things so you don't miss it. See you then.